Josh Phelps is the co-founder of Carbon Country, a 75-acre operation in rural Maryland built around a single idea, which is how much value can you stack onto one piece of land without taking anything out of it? And your current answer, I think we're going to talk about it, is 6 things from what I've counted.
Quite a few.
Okay, so in just to give that little list here, grazing sheep,
Mhm,
building solar,
mhm,
applying biochar, we're at
mhm.
3, burying branches in carbon vaults that'll hold for 3,500 years, both
Yeah.
things we're going to talk about. I have no idea what both of those things are or do.
Okay.
Mining Bitcoin with the excess energy, and then using AI to decide whether to mine or to mine that Bitcoin or to sell that power back to the
Yeah.
grid.
Yeah. I think
So
that's all.
that's what
Yeah.
I counted. Great. Okay. And then just a couple of other notes here. You guys wrote a bill that passed unanimously in the Maryland State Senate,
Yeah.
inaugural members of Strategy's Bitcoin Hub. And
Mhm.
basically your overall thesis, from what I can tell, is keeping family farms in family hands.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and very here for all of that. So welcome to the show, Josh.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks. I'm glad to be here joining about, you've had a lot of folks I've known over the last few years on. So yeah, it's very cool. Very cool.
Okay. Did I get that list right?
Yeah, you did. And I think the last part you said is really important. My business partner Mark likes to say, success will obviously be if we can pay our bills and be successful in our own lives. But if we can bring other people along with us, that's true success. And what's happening, across the world, but definitely in the U.S. in terms of smallholder farms, getting less and less of a piece of the pie versus these super large factory farms. It's making it almost an untenable practice. Built upon subsidies, obviously varying things happening with the climate. Most farmers, at least that we know around here in Maryland, they work another full-time job and are
Mhm.
running farms. And we were just at a farm bureau meeting with also like the local planning and zoning commissions. I mean, all this stuff like is happening so locally, but everywhere, not just here. And you go to these meetings and you hear there's 371 farms in our county that make $20 million in revenue. And
Mm.
like that means most people are probably not making enough. That's just a side thing. And then maybe the top few are making all of it. And how can we change the economics for farms? And by doing it ourselves to learn how to do it, but also to, you change that. And maybe, the average age of the farmer right now is 58 years old. They're aging out. So how can you get people interested and bring in, you know, different pieces of technology that people can, decide to plug in or not? And as you mentioned earlier, just sort of stack these things on top of each other, where whether it's involving obviously using AI to control some processes on the farm and things like that, or arbitrage energy, or deep in decentralized physical infrastructure of solar and what you can do with it, whether using it yourself or send it other places. So we really think it can be transformational for others, but we got to prove that out for ourselves.
I love this. It's a personal story I have a personal interest in it as well. My mom and her partner have a 7 generation family farm in upstate New York, and there's been many times over those many generations of boom and moments of bust, certainly. And I
Yeah,
think to your point now, there's very much a calculation around what's the land worth from a real estate perspective, and then versus what's the farm worth. We'll
yeah,
get into it, but very interested in this on a personal level as well.
yeah,
So okay, I what part of what I love about what's happening right now is that for people who are just listening, Josh is outside on a farm, and the background looks like AI, but it's not. It's a real farm. Can you talk us through sort of where you're at? Like, what are we hearing? What are we seeing? Give us a little bit
yeah,
of a paint the picture for us.
yeah. Sure. So we're in it's a town, or maybe it's even it might be just classified as a human settlement on the map. 1,700
Mhm,
people. It's called Nanjemoy, Maryland.
mhm,
It's about 45 minutes south of DC, which is great. So close to a metropolitan area. Yeah, we're on our first parcel, which is a 73-acre former sawmill slash cattle farm.
mhm.
We actually have now a second property about 15 minutes away that we're going to be developing concurrently near Smallwood State Park. But I mean, I'm about like, if I'm pointing this way, the Potomac River is right over there. further enough south from the recent sewage spill that they had over the summer. But it's really beautiful. And we have on the other side of the barn that I'm sitting at our first stage of solar. It's a 105 kilowatts, pretty small, which we're developing in stages. One, because it takes money, and as we get financing in and grants and take on equity financing, we have a plan for growth for the solar, and then as you mentioned before, a biochar facility, and we can get into that if you want down the
Yeah,
line.
what's biochar?
So biochar is what's left if you take anything organic, but in our case, waste trees. Like think about dead trees laying around everywhere, or when people are trimming their homes, the trees around their home, or whatever, power lines, just everything waste. You would not like cut down trees to do this, but you run it through a machine, what's called a pyrolyzer. And what that is heating up to like 1,000 degrees Celsius in the absence of oxygen. So there's barely any burn off or waste and anything like that. And you can get like let's say like a 5-to-1 ratio. If we put 5,000 tons in of wood a year, we should get about 1,000 tons of biochar. It kind of looks like mulch, and that's just like pure carbon. That's all that's left. It's just pure
Okay.
carbon, which is amazing to apply to soil. You don't have to till it. You can it's water soluble. You can spray it on land, so you don't have to dig up the land. You can mix it in concrete, and what that's doing, that carbon is never going into the atmosphere ever. So
Mhm.
you're sequestering it, and that creates the biochar itself, which people, especially people who love plants, and people who love plants really love plants. They pay good money for this at the store, but farmers can get reimbursed up to $200,000 from the USDA to purchase this stuff and put it on their land. We know a lot of people doing it in, let's say, Napa Valley, where grape yields are going up, and that's a pretty dry place. They don't get a lot of rain. They have fires, so it can fix nitrogen in the soil. It can help crop yields, but it also can hold water in the soil. So they're applying this in places that are prone to forest fires. I mean, it is kind
Is
of like
it
a miracle drug, if you will.
Yeah,
Not,
it sounds like
you know
it.
what I mean.
Is it dirt-like or is
Yeah,
it
yeah.
harder?
It's like it is. It looks like little black glass mulch
Okay,
almost.
okay.
Yeah, yeah,
And
and
you would, like, buy a bag of it, and
mhm.
you would put it into your field, till it in your field, and
Yeah,
help to revitalize the soil. Is that a good way to
yeah,
think about it? Okay.
exactly. It's a perfect way to think about it. And like I said, you could also put it in a spray or mix it with water. That's really nice for people who don't want to till the topsoil and things like that. But yeah, I mean, it's got applications. Like, say you were a biochar producer and you got a contract with the city to mix it in their concrete, and they go out and pave roads. I mean, it's
Mhm.
gone for tens of thousands of years. So that's called like a durable carbon offset versus like there's just other things that people do that just aren't like that. And it didn't
Totally.
get crushed in the big beautiful bill. There's a lot of tailwinds, bipartisan tailwinds behind it, which is
Okay, so you heard it here first, folks. Keep your eye on
yeah,
biochar. I
yeah,
love that. Okay, so you have the biochar, you have the solar, and you have you're mining Bitcoin as well.
yes,
So
yes.
what does that look like there?
Yeah, so, with the solar, and this varies depending on how your power company works, but for us, as we build the solar up to a certain amount of megawatts, you have what's called net metering, which means you can offset your load of like what you're consuming from the grid. You can offset. So Bitcoin mining for us, it's a quick way to get the load up because they do use a lot of energy.
Mhm.
But they're using energy, but we're going to be powering it, with our solar. So,
Okay.
it's a green way. We want to mine Bitcoin in the greenest way possible, but also it creates an asset. So we've already done this actually. We are scaling up our mining as we add more and more solar to our project, but we use the Stacks ecosystem,
Mhm.
Granite protocol to basically we put our Bitcoin in their vault and we pulled money out and we purchased a couple more Bitcoin miners, but you could see where
Cool.
a farmer could purchase a tractor or something like that, almost become their own bank if they had Bitcoin mining, battery storage, and solar on the farm.
Okay, so
And
that's what it takes in order for this sort of setup to work is you have the solar, you have the rigs, and then you have the storage for the
yes,
batteries as well. Is that the right way to think about it?
yeah, that's the right way to look at it. And
Okay.
then, so when you have the batteries going, and then obviously with the Bitcoin price of volatile, the batteries have APIs that you can plug into, and sort of say, okay, like when should I be using what for what? My solar
Mhm.
power versus my battery power versus, or maybe I should be selling power to the grid or to somebody else, a PPA with a, maybe a data company or whatever down the line. I
Yeah,
mean, whatever. You just having control of that energy is powerful, especially
clever.
with what's going on right now.
I
But yeah,
met some guys. It's very clever. I met some guys at the blackjack table in Vegas.
nice.
Well, I was there for Bitcoin Las Vegas, and they were guys that were at the conference as well. And they are basically trying to get Bitcoin miners to transition, or perhaps as well as doing Bitcoin mining, building AI sort of data centers, like mini sort of data centers
Yeah,
on top of Bitcoin mining rigs, because their thinking is like, you already have the footprint, you already have a lot of the infrastructure, you can sort of layer on top the AI data center, or I actually don't know physically what that looks like, but I
yeah.
assume it's a similar setup. Have you guys considered that?
So we've considered like definitely diversifying into having GPUs and using
Hmm.
solar for that. The difference in that is more like if you can make more profits selling that compute, whereas and you might be able to, whereas with
Right.
Bitcoin, you're just generating this asset that, is volatile, but it is there and then you can borrow against it. But I think it's definitely something that we think about a lot, especially as we want to scale up to about 5 megawatts on each farm. And once you get to that point, I'd be remiss to not say that we also want to provide cheap solar for the community. And
Yeah.
up to 5 megawatts is the threshold to do what they call a community solar program. And 3 megawatts of constant power, if you add batteries to it, can power hundreds of homes. And like where we are, I mean, I have to lurk on all the Facebook message groups to see who is hating what at the time. And we haven't had to have a big community meeting yet, but I tell you who they do hate is the power company, because these people are we're in probably the poorest zip code in Maryland. They're not making a lot of money. Their power bill is doubling,
Yeah.
and it's crazy. And with Maryland imports probably, like, I don't know, it's like 30 to 40% of its power. And our power company doesn't, they generate a little bit, like they have some solar, but they basically purchase their power at auction. So if the power price is going up from whoever they're buying it from in Delaware, Pennsylvania, whatever, they just pass it to the people here. And so if we can alleviate that, and we've had those conversations with the power company, we're like, hey, look, guys, like people out here, they really don't like you. So
Yeah.
let's work together and let us provide some of that green energy to folks. So, like I said, it just goes back to like everything being circular. In the end of the day, we want to empower small to mid-size farmers, but then also bring this, that's why we think Bitcoin is as a clean collateral that they can use to be their own bank. We think is really transformational, because otherwise it's hard to say what's going to happen. And there's also a lot of fighting. You mentioned the sheep grazing, right? So people, that's a really big part of this, because it used to be solar farming never together, and
Hmm.
industry would set itself up against each other for that reason, because for a grand scale solar company, they just want to come in, build as much as they can, pack as many panels in as they can, kill everything with Roundup, call it a day, or mow it.
I
And
see. So it's the reason that they're in conflict is because, like, physically those two things are in conflict. You can't have both the solar panels and the land doing
but
the
you
work.
can, except
But
you can't.
okay, and you guys
Yeah.
are solving for that. Okay.
Exactly. So it's called Agrivoltaics, and it's huge now. One of the biggest cattle ranchers and now sheep ranchers in the country, White Oak Pastures down in Georgia. They're like leading this. You can absolutely graze cattle, sheep. You can have pollinators, wildflowers. You can grow plants under
Mhm.
under solar. There's all this technology. The panels move now. You have
Mhm.
translucent ones, but it's pretty hard. It's been on, it's all this stuff is new when you're combining it, and to change, like you mentioned, generations, ideas that have been held for generations. Why can't we have both? The sheep, we first put our sheep under the solar like a couple months ago, and they just ran to the shade because it was like hot as hell. Like they
Mhm.
love it. Cows love it. And that it goes back to, let's keep the farming, let's keep it agriculture, let's continue to grow animals, grow crops. You know, our sheep are basically the lawnmowers. And then that's again it's a less expensive way to keep the vegetation managed. It's more healthy for the soil. They're walking on it all the time and going to the bathroom all the time and stepping in it and fertilizing it. So
Yep.
yeah, it all works together like that.
I love that. Okay. There's this other piece here as I was doing my research that I don't feel like I fully have
Is it the wood vault?
the wood vaults. Yeah, wood vaults.
Yeah.
So you bury branches underground
That's it.
into these vaults, and
That's it.
it's another carbon sequestering
Yeah, and
tactic.
that's literally it.
Okay.
You're
And what's the difference between that and the biochar? It seems like it's similar.
so, they just work in different ways.
Okay.
There's a professor Ning Zhang from the University of Maryland here. He's kind of the godfather of this stuff, written all the papers. And yeah, it's old dead trees. You dig a hole with excavator, you put them in there. You have to go in like beneath the clay soil layer to where it's no oxygen, it's an anoxic environment. And then put all the dirt back on and then do whatever the hell you want above it. So that's a way to sequester carbon, get rid of, again, like in places where there's a lot of fodder for forest fires and everything, where those trees would just sort of decompose. And yeah, it's when I heard it, you're just like, what? But it's pretty simple. But that was part of the bill we got passed. My business partner, he was head of government affairs for Clorox for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
He worked on the Brita side and was really interested in filtration. That's sort of how he got into the biochar stuff. But he is a lobbyist and he knows his way around that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And when the county was kind of telling us, well, I don't know, is that agriculture? I don't know. It's like, all right, I'm going to go talk to my delegates and I'm going to talk to the governor. And we had it passed through the House of Maryland and then the Senate, bipartisan. People kept, because everyone's like, oh, I want to that's good for farmers. Let me put my name on that, for my constituents. And and what that did was it said by 2028, there will be regulations for this stuff. It's kind of like almost like the
biochar.
For biochar and wood vaulting.
Okay.
It sets up a regulatory framework, and it really reminds me of the fight of everyone's like, no, like we want some regulation here to be able to do what we want to do, which people have been fighting for on the crypto side in Washington for now over a decade, right?
Yeah.
So and so that then the county sees, oh, well, the state has now said the Department of Agriculture will be regulating these projects. So that gives them, I think, a little more confidence in that, like by law, we are agriculture. And then people can come behind us and do this without going through the last 2.5 years of what we've been going through.
Yeah. I know, and having experienced, again, Bitcoin Las Vegas this past week, just how Bitcoin continues to have a brand problem. And I can imagine in rural Maryland that there may be some misconceptions or just conceptions about Bitcoin and energy. And I wonder have you encountered resistance around doing what you guys are doing there, specifically around Bitcoin, although I imagine that extends to AI when that starts to come into the conversation as well. But like, has there been pushback?
Not as much pushback as like, when I go to the Farm Bureau meetings, people haven't necessarily followed it. Now, a lot of people have learned about crypto because when Trump got into power and he started talking about it a lot, and then you're like, no, not that part. Don't get that
version. Yeah.
Don't get that coin. But it's way more, the AI and data center stuff is way more front and center because we're just across the river from Virginia, where it's kind of the epicenter of where a lot of the pushback is going, because Virginia has the most data centers per whatever square mile of anywhere. They say that goes back to when the internet was being built and all the pipes are there and it's like AOL started there and everything. So the fiber and infrastructure is why I was always like, why the hell? And the government, obviously the Pentagon, like, why the hell is all this stuff in Virginia?
Yeah, I would not have thought Virginia of all the places. I would have
be
not
like, oh, it should be out in Arizona somewhere, whatever. So they see the you know, you don't hear with Bitcoin. It used to be like, oh, they use so much energy and they're pulling from the power plants, which are then combustible power, da da da. But you didn't have like the water supply issue, and
Yeah.
it's what's like people here like water, and that's a thing. There are a lot of companies working to sort of change that, not just change the message, but change like how efficient. I think data centers eventually will run more efficiently, right?
Mhm.
But it's not like you can just pull the water from the river, which also not good. It needs to be like treated. It's like, I think it's like basically drinking water you need to be using in these places.
Mhm.
But so we personally haven't seen that pushback, but we are following all those conversations closely over here because, well, somebody wanted to put a provision. I don't know if they recommended it to the commission or something. Somebody was like, we can fight data centers by like putting these bills forth. And then the bill is like, if you have more than one computer, you're a data center. And you're like, no, then everyone is
Yeah.
so it's just this weird. I mean, it's crazy. The messaging and the opposition. A lot of people here want data centers, and I get it because they have to go work 2 hours each way in Virginia to build them, like
Mhm.
the electric unions and things like that. But when people here are having expensive power already, we look great on the other side of that conversation because we're like, let us give you clean green energy and let us help. There's a world where you can build solar excuse me, next to a data center that's being built to create the baseload power there, would be really smart, and solar or some other kind of renewable. But yeah, it's definitely locally a hot topic. But Bitcoin
Totally. Yeah.
has not been as much. Bitcoin is more. People seem to be. If all the farmers I meet are pretty open to like, oh, like curious,
Yeah.
because many of them have had to do so much. you know there's always fixing things on a farm.
Mhm.
There's always something to do. And oh shit, like that happened. Well, now I have to do this way because the weather was like this year. And there's all sorts of like homegrown innovation happening. Like our next door neighbor, but he's probably 300 yards away, is a master electrician. So he's been helping us and learning about the Bitcoin miners and everything and how we won't burn our farm our barn down and
Yeah.
stuff. But yeah, it's cool. It's actually cool to like talk to people about it.
Totally. Okay, I want to end here with like a little vision casting. So I'm curious how you would answer the question around if carbon country works in 5 years and 10 years, does it look like you guys have a bigger footprint, or does it look like it's a template or a stack that other farmers are also using themselves and they're running their own stack? Like what's the
Yeah.
best case scenario for you guys?
I think it's us in the region having a bigger footprint because you actually don't need more than one large scale biochar facility super close to another one. So we'll be the first in Maryland, I think. I mean, if someone front runs us, great. We pass the bill, we get great. But I think we will be. And then we'll continue to purchase farms on our own and just do this serially. But yes, creating that template, especially with the tools we're building that can sort of people can utilize to see if where they live or their farm is sort of eligible for something like this. I think to spread would be amazing, and we can go out and go to these conferences and spread the word and things. And Mark, he lives northwest of DC, commutes here every day. I used to live here every day. I'm back in DC now. I think I told you there's no plumbing, and we have wells, but we have no plumbing, so it was pretty crazy for a while. But he has young children, right? I think 12 and 13. So we are in this region for at least 5 years, five,
Yeah.
6 years until they get out of the house. And so we'll continue to build in Maryland, probably Virginia, West Virginia. But yeah, I mean, I think if we can prove it out, get all the regulatory stuff done so other people don't have to go through all that, I really think we can start moving a lot faster over the next 3 years. And then from 5 to 10, that's where maybe we expand. Mark, he was born and grew up a little bit in Brazil.
Mhm.
I've lived in Mexico. I've worked in Latin America when I was working for NGOs and stuff. I've already talked to people in Venezuela now that certain sanctions are lifted about like, let's build some solar now because, it's not illegal to send aid across the border, which it in
Mhm.
fact kind of was during the Maduro regime. So I just think expanding if not global, at least in this hemisphere, right, would be a dream of mine personally.
I love that. Josh, always a pleasure.
Yeah.
And I really am very invested now, so you gotta keep me posted.
I will, of course, and I remember you talking about farming before, and so I definitely will keep you posted. I had one thing I wanted to bring up. Y'all were
Yes.
talking about LinkedIn with Stefan last week, and how
Yes.
LinkedIn is like, okay, like I don't know if we were ever not on LinkedIn, but we're definitely all back on
Well,
LinkedIn.
back on LinkedIn.
So
Mhm.
I got a message about a year ago from a woman I hadn't talked to in 25 years, went to high school with.
Mhm.
Um, and she'll probably kill me, but we're dating now for a year. But she,
Oh, a
she's
LinkedIn. Oh my gosh. See, that's a great LinkedIn story. I love that.
but I was like, "Oh, did she just get on LinkedIn and is friending all her, like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
contacts?" But she did ask me out to go get some. So,
Oh, I
anyway, I
love
was like,
that.
I thought that was a funny LinkedIn story.
LinkedIn dating, that's a very wholesome LinkedIn dating story. I think that
Yeah,
they get
compared.
much
I know
farther than
there's a lot
that.
of nightmares out
Yeah. Oh my gosh,
there.
amazing. Okay, great. Well, we'll have to have you back soon to share your updates.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
All right.